Back here, newspapers campaigning to publish the memoirs of the former MI5 officer Peter Wright were warned in the appeal court today that they could be in contempt of court. The Master of the Rolls, Sir John Donaldson, sitting with two other judges, opened the way for criminal contempt proceedings against the Independent and two London papers. Tonight, the editor of the Independent, Andreas Whittam-Smith, said that he is likely to fight the appeal court verdict in the House of Lords. This latest twist in a legal saga that has lasted for more than a year comes just as the Sunday Times is preparing to print a second extract from Wright's Spycatcher book this weekend. In June 1986, the Attorney General obtained injunctions against The Guardian and The Observer, forbidding them from publishing any information they had got from Peter Wright. Both newspapers have challenged that order. In the meantime, the Independent and two London newspapers, The Standard and The Daily News, printed some of Wright's allegations in the wake of the Australian court ruling in his favour. The Attorney General then began proceedings for criminal contempt of court against these three newspapers. They argued that they were not bound by the earlier ruling against The Guardian and The Observer, and the High Court supported that view. Today, however, the appeal court overturned that decision, arguing that an injunction against one newspaper could apply to another, even though not named. And so far, it's this legal point which alone has been at issue. In fact, no court has yet had a chance to hear all the contempt evidence. And Sir John Donaldson warned today that when this happens, all three newspapers could be judged to be in contempt.
The full reasons for this decision will not be issued immediately, and they're still being finalised by the court. So we're not in a position to express any final comment or view as to how the law now stands, but we do know that such a publication by people who are not bound by the original injunction may constitute contempt of court. I have to say may because the case goes back now to the High Court, the point of law having been resolved, for the particular facts to be argued and for any defence to be raised by the newspapers concerned.
This week, the Sunday Times became the latest newspaper to enter the fray by publishing extracts from Spycatcher. Its plans to do the same next Sunday brought forth a clear warning from the Master of the Rolls. Sir John said, "Interference with the course of justice is a very serious matter, and publishers will no doubt wish to consider their duty with care before they do anything which can have this result." So, where does that leave the editor of the Sunday Times, Andrew Neil?
If he goes ahead again in the light of today's judgment, it seems to me that that is very likely to be regarded as a contempt in due course. And if so, I suspect that the court dealing with that matter would regard it very seriously indeed. And when I say that, I have to say that the penalties for a serious contempt involve possible imprisonment and also very substantial fines that could well be in the range of £100,000 to £250,000. These, I think, are penalties which are very possible, if not probable, in such a case.
Well, the editor of the Sunday Times is with me now. Are you prepared to risk that sort of penalty by going ahead for a second time this Sunday?
Well, there is clearly a risk, but I think it's a risk worth taking. Leading counsel's advice to me is that we're not in contempt. The appeal court today said that you could be in contempt. We believe that if the case got to the House of Lords, that we would be seen not to be in contempt. It is not and never has been our motivation to interfere with the justice of the injunctions against the Observer and the Guardian. Our intention has simply been to publish what we have the copyright to and what is now available in the United States and increasingly in Britain. But the matter is slightly academic now because the government is going to seek an injunction to try to stop us publishing anyway.
And what will happen when that injunction is served?
Well, they've got to get the injunction first, and we're going to fight it. But I would think that within the next 48 hours, the government will move to try and get an injunction against the Sunday Times to stop it publishing further extracts. We will fight that injunction. If the injunction is granted to the government, then we won't be able to publish. But if we win and the government doesn't get its injunction, then we will publish part 2 of Spycatcher on Sunday.
But just to be quite clear about it, if the government wins the injunction, you will then drop your insistence on publishing for a second time?
Absolutely, because that would be breaking the law. I mean, our position throughout in the Sunday Times is not that we've done anything to break the law, and we believe that we have been within the law in everything that we've done so far, and that we still believe that we would be within the law if an injunction wasn't granted. But if an injunction was granted to the government to stop the Sunday Times from publishing, then clearly we couldn't do so.
Would it suit your book better, really, if an injunction was sought so that the matter were decided swiftly and surgically, as it were, rather than you having to proceed on the basis of the kind of ruling that Lord Donaldson was talking about today?
Well, I think it is better that we now get it into court and let the courts decide. It could be a long battle, but at least it's better than sort of wink and nudge and can we do a deal behind closed doors. I was asked today by the Treasury Solicitor if I would give undertakings not to publish. Now, I believe this is a political move, and I don't believe the government has the right to ask us to do that. And that's why I still say I'm prepared to publish if the law will allow us. So if there's an argument between the appeal court and the government and the Sunday Times or wherever, it's all getting very complicated. Let's get this matter into court and get it resolved to see if it's legal for us to publish or not.
On the broader politics of the matter, what the government has always said, of course, is that it is determined to uphold the principle of confidentiality being kept by former civil servants, in particular by former intelligence officers. Have you really no regrets about the fact that your serialization of the book has already breached the principle of confidentiality further, and also has helped Mr. Wright to profit from his own breach of his vows of secrecy?
Well, our deal, first of all, was not with Mr. Wright. We've had no dealings with him at all. It's with the publishers. Secondly, the grounds in which the government will seek an injunction against us, as we understand it later this afternoon, were not going to involve confidentiality. Confidentiality was the grounds in which the Observer and the Guardian received injunctions. But we understand the government is not going to go for that this time. They're going to talk about contempt proceedings instead. It's a complicated legal thing, but we understand they're not going to raise confidentiality when they seek an injunction. To my mind, this weakens their case substantially. But the confidentiality is important if the man was revealing state secrets and threatening national security. But he's got allegations of iniquity by the security services. Now, confidentiality cannot cover allegations of iniquity, of wrongdoing by certain parts of MI5 itself. And the other thing is that even if the principle was important, and I understand the principle, the fact is that it's a busted flush now. The book is out in the United States. The government has done nothing to stop it. The book is coming into this country. The government is doing nothing to stop it. So why in heaven's name can't the Sunday Times publish another extract from it?
Andrew Deal, thanks very much indeed for joining us.